is partner and head EMA, IT Advisory KPMG. Mr. Naren K. Mishra, DGM SBI. Mrs. Scott Cassidy, Managing Director SAMS. Mr. Vivek Srivastava, Lead Security Business Commercial Vertical India and SAARC Cisco. I would like to request moderator to please initiate the session.
I'm waiting for that. Do I come? I will speak.
I know the panel was very insightful and interesting. Dr. Bajraj is 7 times wiser than I am. All those who need words of wisdom for him, I would request them either to take it outside the room or say. Alright, this is possibly the toughest session I'm going to do in my life, but also I'm happy that there are 3 advantages I'm starting this session with. Number one is that for the first time in my life, I made a product or stuff in the centers in a way. That's a great advantage of having an IELTS seat. I love it. The second advantage I think I'm finding here is that there are fewer people in the room inside than there are outside, so you can actually bluff and still be okay. There are very few listening to what you're saying. So starting with a number of advantages, but let me be serious. I think I'm very happy to have with me here today extremely insightful and intelligent people. I've had the opportunity to briefly interact with all of them. I'm sure you will hear their views and find it equally insightful as I did today. The topic of today is very intriguing. And when I read through the topic, I said, I almost read it 3 times to figure out where do I start and where do I end, because big data has been a big thing. In fact, many times when I read about big data, I realize that a lot of people get confused with more data as big data. And I keep telling them that just because you've now bought 2 terabytes hard disk doesn't mean that you're dealing with big data. Okay, so the volume of data is not really big data which you're talking about. Big data is really about data with different kind of velocity, variety of different things. Just to kind of, and I want to part before I say this next sentence, which is not my quote, it's somebody else's quote. I wanted to use it because I thought I might just make you a little bit more interested in this session which is coming up. Anybody in this room who's a minor less than 18 years of age? Okay, normally the minors don't acknowledge, so I assume they're not. So let me just say this quote with an absolute tradition of not being actually to be okay. It's a quote from Dan Riley, the guy who is a big data scientist, and he talked about, he says big data is like teenage sex. Big data is like teenage sex. Everyone believes that others are doing it. Nobody really knows how to do it. But because they believe others are doing it, they claim that they are doing it too. So that's the reality with big data. Everybody believes that they are doing it because everybody else is doing it. They don't acknowledge that they actually don't do big data. But I believe that everybody in this world claim that they do big data. What I want to focus on today is the big data and its implication on business of managing security. So coming back to the subject about the information security and big data. There are 2 different dimensions which we were discussing as a group before we came in here. One is there is an extraordinary amount of information and data being available. So if you look at enterprises, they are so much data rich that you find it as a curse. There is so much information available that you really can't handle it. There is so much amount of volume of data that you cannot make sense out of it. So there is this huge data which is available to us, and how do we make sense out of it? That's a big challenge. At the same time, we all believe that more data will make us better, richer, and smarter at decision making. So how do we deal with the huge amount of data which is now available to us through devices capturing information, the logs being available, and all that? That's one dimension. How does it make us better or worse? And then the second dimension which we will focus on is What are the troubles? Because different kind of big data elements can make it for others. But let me just stick to this one first here. Is what are the various benefits or challenges the big data can offer? So may I request each of you, maybe I just say for a few minutes, your view about the subject, and if I could request Mr. Shah for you to start.
Thank you, Mr. Place. Good afternoon, friends. Actually, the big data particularly, before understanding the big data, everything, we'll go to the edges of the technology world. We are the user of the technology, and there are three components of the technology. Number one, the hardware, software, and the humanware. The humanware is the most important component of the technology present days. For securing your information or the data, everything, you have to secure your humanware. Actually, humanware is the weakest link in the entire chain of the technology. If data is nowadays, the fraudster, the cyber criminals, I am the bankers and security aspect also, think that nowadays the cyber criminals are not targeting the hardware or the software. They are targeting the humanware. And there are three things. One is the people, process, and technology. You have to evolve the technology, you have to evolve the process, but you have to manage the people also. If your data is having stored in secured manner, and your insider, particularly insider, that he is not inured of the by anybody cyber criminals, you can say that we are almost safe and secure as regard the cyber security of the data is concerned. Number one. So for that, you need to have the access control also in the big data. Or the data, your data warehouse, whatever you are having, you need to have a access control, and particularly in the banking sector, we have our experience that it is on need to know or need to have basis only. And second thing, you have to have some process which should be foolproof when data is traveling from one source to storage place, data warehouse or another. And third, you have to monitor all activities having the tools, cyber security tools in your system, in your organization, to monitor the movement of the data, movement of the person, movement of the cyber criminals or attackers also. So till 2000 we were talking about if you are having firewalls, IDS, IPS, or everything is safe and secure within your periphery. But now gone are the days. Now you have to have latest SIM, latest database activity monitoring tool, latest network behavior anomaly detection tool. All these tools have to have just to secure your big data and the data from being leakage. Thank you very much.
I think somebody talked with that statement, small statement that you made, and took me back to my teenage days. Okay, so anyway, so coming back to the topic of cyber security and big data. I look at it in two ways. One, why we are looking at the big data analytics, cyber security, inputs or kind of intelligence. The reason being, one, that there are more things which are happening. There are more connections, more devices, more users, more applications. Means that data itself is getting increased day by day. The security devices that you used to have by the number, they are also increasing. Many. We started from antivirus and firewalls, and now we have moved up to a level. We are talking about anti-APT technologies. On an average, if you look at an average enterprise, probably will be using 15 to 25 security technologies. And all these technologies are also end up generating a lot of data. One is that you go to individually look at all these technologies and look at what incidents are there. Or otherwise you can consolidate. The moment you talk about consolidation, the security aspects of it becomes that you need some analysis of the big data side. There are two issues that we can solve when we look at the big data analytics. One, from our perspective, if I look at the guys who are doing the security research or trying to build security tools for customers, they can use these analytics to build advanced intelligence. If I am able to monitor, say, some 15,000 devices or 15 million endpoints and look at the data transfers between these devices, talk about IoT or IoE devices which are connected. If I am able to look at these devices, communications, and able to do some analytics, put some analytics, use some data science, I can actually build some advanced intelligence. So if I see some activities happening in some part of the world, can I use that intelligence and at least stop that happening from the other part of the world? So So one is that building intelligence from the security tools perspective that you can use for different customers, different enterprises. Now looking at the different view from the customer side. If you are the enterprise and you are using so many security tools, you surely want to have a unconsolidated view. So what you can do is you can look at all these technologies, generate a lot of data, put some smart analytics onto it, do some data modeling, and figure out of those 3 million logs that you generate in a day, which are the 3 which are important, or which are the 2 which are important, right? So you can converge all that, get some actionable intelligence. That's another benefit that we can get. So far, the working of these things are concerned, adoption of big data analytics and security is concerned. I think we still have some way to probably we can. But these are my 2 cents to start.
Thank you very much. Extremely insightful. Scott, my request you to just
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Much like my colleague here, we feel, I think as well, that we're always searching for hardware solutions and software solutions. Really, it comes down to people and process. And we continue to look for the magic, for the solution to the big data problem and other security problems. But right now, we all know we're facing massive shortages of people. By 2020, we're looking at 1 million to 2 million person gap shortage. And so we as an industry are going to have to work to find solutions to have folks that have the understanding, have the foundational knowledge, and then the additional expertise for threat analysis to understand that big data so they can automate and have those automated tools focus on the problems that take those advanced skills and knowledge and apply to the problems that we're facing every day. Just as our colleague from Cisco mentioned, billions of endpoints arriving with the Internet of Things, it's the Internet of everything. We're going to have a solution where folks have a process in place to address the problem.
Scott, so I really like the point that you made, which kind of goes back to the human fair point, is about the capability, competence, and human's ability to do it. And you talked about the machine-to-machine kind of system generating a lot of data. That I remember somewhere I read which said that the amount of data a wristband, a digital wristband can generate in a day is roughly the amount of data one would write if every person wrote a diary every day about his activities. So it's like that much voluminous amount of data. Let us focus on the enterprise side of technology, and I want to take here a bit of what I call the accusatory position, if you like. Because I kind of get this number of people who have invested a significant amount in building systems. Let me start with one to you, Vivek. The research suggests that only about 15% of the devices which produce logs are actually enabled to produce logs. So about 85% of the devices which can actually produce logs, which could be used for diagnostics, security, whatever, etc., the logs are switched off, either in the form of performance issues, or somebody says, where will I store all of this data and all of that. So about 15% is log enabled, and a very small fraction, I don't remember, of that is actually ever used for doing the analysis. So in that kind of situation where we have the devices which are capable of doing all of this, but we as organization, administration, people, if we pretty much switch off a lot of those capabilities, where's the future of this analytics and this data and using it for making our lives secure?
I agree with you. Based on my experience, I can tell you, I have not come across a customer who still has a proper mechanism, to look at the logs, little intelligent, for all the devices, all the technology that is invested in. I'll tell you a very simple example of, a small, internet security tool that most of the customers of the enterprises use, like say tools and prevention system. By the virtue of the technology itself is supposed to, generate tons and tons of logs in a day. And over a period of time, the security custodians of the enterprises started overlooking it. Reason being the data being so massive, so huge. And when they started doing the activity, they were not able to find anything out of it. They were not making sense of it. Then they started, overlooking it. Why they are doing it? The reason being, if you depend primarily only on the human expertise and the human intelligence to be able to decipher, something from so many logs, that what is actionable and what is not actionable, you will not actually, get the right situation. what you need to do is to probably build some artificial intelligence capabilities as well, which of course the analytics tools these days offer, right? It blends with the human intelligence as well as the artificial intelligence that works together and actually can bring down those logs from those 10,000 to 2 or 3 when it becomes actionable. When it becomes workable, then only the adoption will happen. And then people will start looking at logs from every single device. Now suppose you're getting logs from only 3 tools or 3 security technology today, and you are not making sense of it. You will surely not allow the other security tools to talk to or send you logs or start logging the activities from there as well. But the moment you start making sense of those 3 tools first, you will start believing that probably I can get some more intelligence if I switch on the logging or if I switch on the intelligence gathering from the other devices as well. So you have to start somewhere. It's very important that you build some proper tools and practices together to get to a situation where we actually can make some sense of the data that we have.
So what is the timeline you're looking at? When do you get there?
I think we have had a good start. Some of the enterprises are already doing it. I have seen some organizations starting it with some of the platforms, some of the vectors. If you ask my suggestion, my recommendation probably will be to your security scenario can be across different platforms. Network is one platform, devices are one platform, your cloud connections are another platform. Probably you can start from one, and start building onto it. There are organizations who already started doing it at least for network platform. Like look at what Sir was saying from SBI perspective. They built the SOC and they are looking at behavior analysis and some other tools also. They already started using it because they are making sense of the data. If you're getting some actionable intelligence, makes sense. You'll continue to add these things. I think we have a good start. Probably we still have a long way to go.
So you ducked my question, otherwise I was going to have somebody tweet saying, Vivek says 2017 we'll have smart machines doing self-corrective logs and all that. So sorry, you missed the opportunity Vivek some of the time. Ms. Mishra, I think you come from one of the largest bank in the world. And sometimes I wonder people working in that bank in security function must be superhumans for things to be working perfectly. So touch wood, things are all okay. But I'm interested in hearing from you. Give us an example of 1 or 2 real-life cases of how some of these log analysis technology has helped banks like you, or could help banks like you in really detecting or preventing any security breach.
I'll start from Mr. Vivek where I left that. Analytics tool, we are talking about the analytics tool. There are 2 types of analytics tools. Number 1 is for the analytic tool used for the business purpose, number 1. And second is analysis done for this from the security point of view. So most of the organizations, particularly in India, they are having the analytic tools for the sake of development of the business and analyzing for business opportunity only. Number 1. Most focus is on business particular side, and second, next. We can say that it is step-motherly treatment with the use of analytics tools from the security point of view. So what is happening? If we are, and all assets, IT assets are generating n number of logs, and logs are every day increasing day by day, and everybody is acting as the water flowing from the river. It will try to find out the easiest way to reach up to the sea level. So this is the practitioners, the organization practitioners are doing. But in our, particularly in banking sector, particularly in State Bank of India, I will tell you, we are having 2 wings. Number 1, analytics, which is analyzing the data generated by the business business department, business verticals, and IT tools, other core banking, other applications, which is being used for the business development perspective point of view. But we are having independent security operations center. Huge investment, and presently we are having the SIM tool, latest upgrade and other things. Database activity monitoring tool is also there, which is logically built in, and network behavior anomaly detection tool is also there. These are the tools which are getting the logs from the all IT assets, and these are being 24/7 analyzed. And all events are, if any event is turning to an incident, these are being escalated and these are being looked into that. what happens is our present capacity is 5 lakhs events per second, but presently we are running with 52,000 events per second. And all 52,000 events are generating. These are being analyzed by tools and other things, and approximately 10 to 15 incidents are being generated. I'll tell you one or two things. Number one which could be generated, I detected from our solver. It was at one branch, one Active Directory user was created, and it was deleted within 15 minutes. Creation of Active Directory user, it is not an incident, it is an event. Okay, it can happen. And deletion of an Active Directory user, it is also not an incident, it is an event. When somebody is retiring, somebody is not there, the user will be deleted. But creation of a user and deletion of the same user within 15 minutes, our ship treated it as an incident. And it was escalated, and we could find out that anybody, they explained that it was wrongly created and wrongly deleted, but our investigators could find out that one person was posted at one branch, he was at another branch, he was trying to be part of that branch for using all this, and one user cannot use the system from two branches. This was one side. Second is that at one network behavior and at 4 or 5 times, we could find out that if some system is sending 500 MB data every day normally, there was sudden spike of 2 GB data. So that going from 500 GB, it is an event, it is always happening, and sudden spike of 2 GB data, we could find out one's insider also, which was finally terminated from the client service center. So these are the tools which if we are using for particular analytic point or security analytic point of view, this will generate n number of security alerts, which will certainly save your organization.
Brilliant. The two examples which you gave, one of the, I think the system itself generated that as an incident. The system is becoming smarter, as Vivek you said. And the second one, you said that somebody had a malicious intent and you terminated it. In fact, one of my friends, security officer for a bank, he said that I'm going to invest in this SIM tool only with the ROI if I can put 2 people behind bar within 365 days. So if I don't put 2 people behind bar in a year, then the tool hasn't paid for. So I think for you guys, it's paid for in some way or the other. Coming to you, Scott, I think you talked about very interesting dimension of people, the capability. And I've always seen we have a huge amount of money spent on very expensive technologies. I can tell you a lot of analytics come through screens and alarms and all of that which comes in. And here we have somebody who's sitting behind it and it's generally colorblind, but he's not colorblind, he has the ability to just entertain himself with these different colors coming from the screen. What's your view on what would it take for us to actually build capability and capacity on human side to be more smart in analyzing those 2 out of those 52,000 events a second? What does it take for us to do that?
Great question. I think it comes down to, one, it comes down to training. Folks have to be trained and understand what they're looking at, so they'll have that interest and intuition. Secondly, they've got to have the aptitude to take that information, process it, and then make it actionable, do something with it, and make it part of the overall process. Organizations tend to give lip service to the processes that are established, the standards, but yet we see over and over again instances where we have breaches, untoward events, where people simply aren't following the processes. So it comes down to, one, the training, but then also the processes that are established, and they can be managed by the owners, the states, the academics that are managing the overall cybersecurity group.
Thanks, Scott. I think it's quite, you need an ecosystem, as I kind of hear from you, is that it's not just one way to solve this problem, it's a very complex problem. I think this is very fascinating as I hear you're saying there are technologies which are available, you're saying there are technologies that are actually being put in place, and you're working on building the capability on the people side. I kind of go on to the second dimension of my discussion here, which is sometimes I wonder, and this is a question which goes in my head, is that do we really know what to get out of that data? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I keep quoting different people because I run the risk of misquoting myself. So there's another quote from another guy, anonymized, and somebody saying that data are like people. They will tell you what you want to hear if you hit them hard enough. So if you keep hitting the data hard enough, it tends to tell us the story which you want to hear. And sitting in the number of boardroom presentations, I can tell you, you can look at the data whichever you want. So with all of this mountain of data which we are creating, and with our strong ability to beat the data to third-degree torture and make them speak what they want to speak, how comfortable somebody in the boardroom will be that the data is actually telling him what is not what he wants to hear, but what the reality is. Mr. Vishal, would you like to take on this one?
I would have a small view on that as well. So as I said, data, you can tell the data what is story to be told, right? And that's how the people and the processes piece, comes in place. I can tell you, I have seen the organizations who have invested, a good amount of money in building good tools and deploying good tools from the same perspective as well as from the data analytics perspective as well. They have the processes of generating reports, monitoring it, submitting it in the board, and all that. But you'll be surprised, the data feed, that same tool, is limited to only 2 devices. That talks about your gateway level device and probably one more segment of the data center. If you're going to be limiting yourself, what you're actually trying to do there is, if you're limiting the data feed to be only 2 places, you're actually turning blind eye. You're saying that I'm not going to be looking at other data. So you're actually, feeling happy about it, that okay, nothing is happening at the gateway, nothing is happening at the data center. What's happening in the east-west, transactions and all that? No, that will go for a toss. You'll never have that visibility. So it becomes extremely important when you actually talk about this, deciphering, big data, this thing. The data feed quality has to be looked at. What data is actually being fed into your analytics? If the data is being fed only from one dimension, you will always get one dimension story or one dimension result. It has to be multi-dimensional. It has to be, the variety of data is very important, from what all, places you are, collecting it and how you are feeding into analytics tool. That's also very important to actually give you the right picture. If you really want to know the right picture, the data feed quality has to be, looked at.
You kind of bring another interesting twist in the same dimension to say that, most people, even though they need to try a tool, they're turning a blind eye. So how useful that answer and outcome is. So the learning which I see from everyone's perspective here is that it's easy to make investment into big technologies, but it is very hard to really see what you should be seeing. So I think that's a very valid, insightful thing. And moving away from the subject of how sometimes we can be misguided by the data sets and what could be a number of areas which we could ignore, I want to explore the other dimension and kind of get a cue from the previous session to talk about privacy. I'm sitting here enjoying this session for the last few minutes, is the impact of on privacy which could arise from the big data. And let me just kind of build on to what I'm saying here, is each one of us today have the ability to express ourselves a lot more than what we had before. So people would be willing to put Facebook posts, Twitters and all of that. And a lot of that creates data in the virtual universe and allows you to interact. And that kind of has an impact on privacy. I'm taking that a little bit further and not saying it specifically to Mr. as an SBI or anything, but if I'm a bank, which I happen to have a mobile banking app, and I push that app as a voluntary download to subscribe to the bank which I have, now the bank app also has the capability to be nice to you and tell you that what is the ATM next to you, because it will be easier for you to find the ATM nearer you than to go to the list of ATMs without knowing your location. So the app would like to have access to your location legitimately, so it helps the app to figure out where you are. Isn't that making the life more complicated for the administrator who has access to that data of those X million users who have that app? And not only now you know their bank balances, which you were supposed to know, you also know where you go and where did they go yesterday and all that. The onus on protecting that unnecessary amount of information, what is the kind of balance you would draw on that amount of big data which you now have, which you never had, and how do you deal with protecting that kind of data?
what happens, there are three components in any organization. As of me, it is the marketing part, that is business owners. Second is IT part, application owners, and third is security. You have to balance between all three. Business owner will certainly focus on the business part only. He will look into the opportunities and try to grab that opportunity by spreading anything, by developing any tool or whatever is there. His concern is about that, developing any business model. He will ask the IT vertical, the application owners, to develop the tools and other things as far as that's possible, and with the intention not to lose the opportunity. But here comes the role of the information security, particularly the security owners, who has to make the balance between application owner and the business owner, and the organization goal has to be fulfilled. It has to be fulfilled, and side by side, he has to see that all tools which are available in the market that are safe and secure, which are going to be used in the organization. In that case, what happens, the n number of tools are being deployed. Wherever there is a handshake between that tool and your internal, there are intranet and internet, so two things are there. Wherever there is a handshake between the two, intranet and internet, there you have to put the devices in the form of firewall, IDS or MPS, whatever is there, with the updated rules and updated capabilities to sort out the malicious mode, malicious thing, all these things, and forbid them to intrude into your system. That is the most important component which you have to see there.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, but I'm also keen to hear if there are views from the audience. Any questions? Yes, please.
Understand security, because as you dwelt on the point, if a security person analyzes the data, he would want the data to throw out information that he wants to hear, whereas the data can speak for itself and get in a perspective or a dimension which would be beyond his thought process, right? Another thing that I want to bring in is that data analytics is not about, it's a complete science around data modeling and then, applying it to business. Now that we're talking of data analytics into security, if you see the correlation engine for the SIEM, they have been, the whole purpose of getting SIEM into existence was getting different feeds of data and then giving a correlated information. But how successful SIEM tools have been into organizations to determine the ROI and the required information was a real challenge. So like Mr. Mishra said, the two examples that he cited, according to me, you don't require data analytics to give you that information, because a SIEM tool can give you that kind of information. So where are you really looking at applying data analytics into the security infrastructure? Are you then saying that the SIEM is failing, not up to the mark? And I would request all of you to dwell upon it with your own perspective, because we would get much more multi-dimensional views.
So your name is? Seema, okay, I could recognize you. So, thanks, Seema. I think the 2 points which you made, one is that who should be responsible for analyzing the data, and that clearly shows that, I won't necessarily say, Seema, it should be whether the domain or no domain. It should be clearly somebody who doesn't have a conflict of interest. So you could have people who may not be from the same domain but may have conflict of interest. And you could have people who don't have conflict of interest and yet stay in the same domain. But your point is absolutely valid on that one. It's saying that it can't be creating a self-review thread saying that, I'm telling myself, and if I'm responsible for protecting, how can I be responsible for analyzing it? So I think that's an absolutely relevant point. The other thing which you also say is that within the same point that yes, you will find situation where if you have only one bent of dimension, you will not look at the big data in a multitudinal way. So I think bringing in experts from different data kind of helps. So I don't think that requires discussion. But I think your second point is extremely relevant, and I don't want to over-generalize it based on my experience and talk about the larger community of the SIEM providers. So may I request the panelists to kind of take a view saying that the question from Seema is that have the SIEMs really failed the promise to go beyond the normal incident detection, or is there still a lot more hope and possibility and potential which we will see or which we are seeing in any way? So any thoughts on that?
First part of the question, which was the analysis team or the analytics team probably has to be someone who's not responsible for security. I absolutely agree with you. It goes back to the same old debate of whether the CISO should be reporting into the CTO or the risk officer, right? Ideally, yes, the analytics has to be, the responsibility has to be with some other team, which is not responsible for security, so that, they bear a different lens and can give you the right, picture, and you can work upon it. It's a process and it will continue to be like that. The second part of the question, which was whether the SIM tools are actually failing us. So let me tell you, I absolutely agree with you on that, that data analytics is a separate problem altogether. You actually need some data scientists who understand the data modeling, can create the right relational models, and can give you the picture that you actually want to achieve. But SIM tools were actually, it started with a good promise of correlation, right? And I will still say that it's still not a big data analytics tool, but it was a good starting point, for the organizations. It still had some inherent, analytics capability from the security, components perspective. So if you're using some, say, 6-7 security devices, it was still giving you a view of those 6-7 security devices at a one single window, at a consolidated, level, and probably using some level of analytics that it had. If you really look at the analytics to be done at that scale, that we are talking about, then of course you go down to that level of setting up your own scientists and data models and using Hadoop and all those aspects of it, doing it. The challenge there comes in the team that you put in. They may understand the data analytics, but you also need to train them to understand what actually are you trying to achieve. What are the results that you are trying to get. That consolidation or the convergence of the expertise and the understanding of security domain is still not happening. That still takes time. Probably the guys who do education and all that will have to play a larger role there. But my point is that SIM tools, of course, have not failed us. But yeah, it's a good starting point, and then you can start scale out activity from there.
I totally agree with Mr. Vivek. Just to add one thing. Actually, what happens is any application, IT application is generating the logs, and these logs are being analyzed by SIM tool, by correlation engine. That is also based on the rules you have assigned to this SIM tool particularly. You have to upgrade every time. Upgrade has to happen based on the recent changes and all these things also. And after that, you have to apply your mind also in SIM tool. SIM tool is a tool. It is a pathology center, you can say. It is a pathology center. It will diagnose and throw you that you are suffering from diabetes, your sugar level is 180 now. It is you to take the decision. If you are ignoring that thing particularly, then it may happen in the wrong way. Second thing is that if we are not connecting, as Mr. Vivek said earlier, if we are restricting the logs from the only 2 devices, we are having 50 devices and we are restricting the tools for 2 devices. It is just like we are employing a security guard at my home and asking him not to stop anybody from coming right inside the home. If we are saying that we are not deploying properly the SIM tool or the other security gadgets, certainly it is going to be bad as well. It is a tool to assist the human player who will take decisions and other things and stop all these things. Only technology cannot solve the problem. It is 10-90 placement. 10% goes to technology, 90% goes to human being. Everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Seema, I really appreciate your thoughtful questions, and I'm sure you had perspectives. I have one more there, so can I just take possibly one or two last questions? Mic doesn't reach fast enough, I'll have to tell it over.
Hello. Hello. It's not working. Not. Hello. Yeah. This is Anil Katti. We have developed a SEAL tool over a period of 4 years. And our core competence is ingesting large amounts of data. So how do we actually go to market where we have expertise to take all the 100 sources, scale to a high level? But we are not one of those tools who have done 50 million in revenue, who is installed at 10 banks and in 6 countries and malls. So how do we go around while staying in the Indian context?
I think in our life we go through the cycle as well. All of them. The perseverance is the key. That's all I can say. End of the day, if you really add value to what you actually talk and show it to a certain extent, there are listeners. There are people who will listen to it. There are guys who are looking at these technologies, these services, and they pay value for it. And so it will surely be listened to. I still, see not many security companies. Look at the exhibitors outside. A lot of them are very, very niche players. They are not generalistic security players who will go and do the off-the-shelf selling. Right? They will probably be looking at the target customers very, very selectively and go about chasing them and start building the ground for themselves. So that's a cycle you'll have to go through. There's no shortcut.
Any more questions? Yes, please. You have.
Yeah, hi. I'm Samuel here. I have one quick question with related to SIEM and big data. The question is that, if you look at the medium size and the small scale companies, they will not have the budget to really, install that large scale SIEM tools, right? So, considering that, even we are looking at multiple options, how beneficial would people like by sending these logs or looking at certain vendors who can help us do that log monitoring and log validation? That is number one. So will it benefit? Number one question. So that was one good question. And the second one was, most of from a security community will have a question is, how secure will that be? Considering that if we are moving the data, so how secure would be able to work around moving the data to our third-party service provider?
Okay, I think your first question that yes, are there providers who could do this on a managed service mode rather than you having to deploy those tools?
Will it?
The answer is yes. Will it benefit? The benefit could be commercial, the benefit could be non-commercial. Commercial is something which I cannot answer, but certainly if you are able to not have those skills in-house, it will benefit because you can hire somebody for that specific purpose. The usual benefits of managed services model where you have the experts on rent kind of model. So certainly it will help monetary. I really can't comment on that. To your second question, will it have issues? Again, the answer depends on, there are various ways by which you can anonymize a lot of details. There are masking tools, there are things which can do. It can also be secure hosting. So I really don't think it will be a showstopper as I see it, but yes, one will have to look at the potential cases. Okay, I think I've come to the end of the session. I'm sure you liked it because when we started, the room was 1/3 full. Now we have the room full, so certainly your aura has helped people coming, or maybe the coffee outside has been stopped. So that's why everybody is in here. Normally I carry chocolates to distribute because people don't stay in the room till the end, but I'm happy here that stopping the coffee is also a good idea. We can save on chocolates. Yes, I think the next session is Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. He's going to come here personally to shake hands with all the people who are sitting from row number 1 to 13. But before we go, I certainly thank you all for for a wonderful session, but I have one last question. One last question to each one of you. Yes or no kind of a thing. If you had the ability to make a choice in your own organization, if you had the ability to make a choice of your own organization, will you like to buy an expensive technology with limited proven track record, or would you like to buy a cheap technology with a lot of track record? And why I'm saying expensive and cheap is not because of the cost, but because of the brand, which is the proven track record. Upcoming. Okay. Great. What would be your choice?
I would due diligence.
Okay, so you say, okay, depends. Consulting answer. Yes.
I think for the other cover, this is a new industry, it's so young, there's going to be lots of new technologies and opportunities.
Perfect. I think I'm hearing a lot more experiment with the new one, so you've got a bright future. If you felt otherwise, you can go home, sleep tight today, you'll have nice dreams, wake up tomorrow morning, catch hold of these two guys, at least they will invest in your business. If they don't, it's all being recorded, so you have the evidence. My only hope and keen aspiration and desire for the world is that I don't think that the more data collection will help. I don't think that the more correlation is going to help. To me, what's going to help is when the machine will be able to actually take action. Not identify actionable items. I don't think that's it. When the machine is able to take action which are ethically right, underline. I hope that's the day we would have a right. We won't have to worry about who does the analysis. You don't have to worry about how the data is researched, and hopefully the machines will take over part of our world, and I'll sleep tight. With that, thank you very much. Give me a round of applause for these guys. Thank you very much.